100 Pounds Down is proudly brought to you by my agency, JKD Global Travel, curating moments of purposeful immersion for professionals to recharge, recenter, and reconnect with what matters most. Start your journey at jkdtravel.com. Welcome back to 100 Pounds Down, where we preach the gospel of GLP-1 and the word is good. I'm Kristen DiBiase, and after a lifetime of struggling with obesity, I lost over 41% of my body weight on tirzepatide, also known as Mounjaro and Zepbound, and I'm never going back. If you're someone who's considering starting anti-obesity medications like these, Ozempic or Wegovy, you're already in the middle of your journey, or you're getting toward that maintenance phase and wondering, what comes next? Bring it in. Well, hey, everybody. I'm here to talk to you all a little bit on the agenda about maintenance and some surprises that I have found during my maintenance journey. So I am about 5.5 months in since I started maintenance on tirzepatide, and it has been a really interesting experience. So I thought I would share some of that information with you all today and just let you know how things have been going for me. Just as a reminder, for folks who are getting close to their goal weight, generally speaking, Eli Lilly within their clinical trial results have mostly recommended that the typical dosage for people who are looking to stay on the medication during maintenance, those doses are going to be the ones in the 5 milligram, 10 milligram, and 15 milligram ranges. However, that said, each person is individual and your specific body is unique, and how it works on this medication is also unique. So something that's an in-between dose might actually be what's better for you, and different ways of how you do your maintenance may be better for you. We've talked a little bit in the past in my transitioning to maintenance episode about what some of those strategies are. So if you're looking for ideas on ways that you could transition to maintenance, make sure to check that video out. For me, my current maintenance strategy is to take 10 milligrams, and I am taking that 10 milligram dosage once weekly. So I did not choose an option of, stretching out the time period between my doses. I'm not choosing an option like splitting the dosage for each week in half and taking it once every 3 or 4 days, anything like that. I'm really doing a very simple, basic continuation of the same strategy that I was using when I was in my weight loss phase. So I'm taking that normal weekly shot, but I'm just staying on the dosage that is right for me. So far, I think that 10 is really where I should be. I am noticing that I am able to eat more, for example, but I am not having that extreme restriction and inability to eat that I was having at various points when I was in the weight loss phase. So let me get into kind of what's been going on in this 5.5 months since I've started maintenance. So again, my strategy, 10 milligrams weekly, 1,500 to 1,600 calories per day. For me, if people recall, when I was in the weight loss phase, it was really a struggle for me to make sure that I was eating a good number of minimum calories to make sure that I was just not progressing at a rapid and unsafe weight loss rate. So for me, when I was losing weight, it was all about really making sure I was getting calories in. And that was a struggle in and of itself, just trying to make sure I was eating enough. Now I've settled into this place where, because I am trying to target a certain weight, for me, I feel that In the larger range, I would like to float in a 10-pound range between 140 and 150 pounds. But honestly, that 140 end for me is even a bit low. So my realistic goal is really, I'm trying to float in between anywhere from about 143 to 147 or 148 pounds. And that is right for me. For reference, when you look at how tall I am almost 5'7". So I'm 5'6" 3/4 inches tall. And when you look at the type of, bone structure that I have bones that are a bit more blunt. So I have quite broad shoulders, and my bones are they're not sharp and pointy, but they're pretty substantial. So for me, having a little bit more weight within the range of what is healthy for someone who is my height is more appropriate. I feel that as I get further down in the range that supposedly is the right range for me, which is between 130 to 160 pounds, if I really get on the lower end of the 140s, I feel that I start to look a little bit gaunt, a little bit skeletal. So I'm really trying to hew very closely to the mid point of that particular range for someone who has my height and build. Something that was really surprising to me was what I noticed about how my body continued to change. So once I hit my final weight, my moonshot goal of 145 pounds, I was able to maintain at that weight for the first month very easily. My weight really wasn't changing at all. And so the thing that I found most surprising was that even though my weight was staying the same, my body was continuing to change the entire time. At that point, I feel, looking very skeletal at times. I tend within my body and where weight is carried, I noticed throughout my weight loss journey that I lost very quickly from across the top of my head and shoulders area. And so even when I was at my highest weights, I had very sharp clavicles. I have a really nice portrait zone in photos because my clavicles are pretty prominent even when I'm carrying more weight. And so for me, that was a place where, as I lost fat from that area of my body, it could look very skeletal very easily. So at some points, I noticed, even though my weight was not going down anymore, that I did continue to have fat loss around various places in my body. When I took my last set generally of kind of outfit of the day photos, as I was heading to that place where I was trying to finally hit goal, I could see then, and I compare myself to photos now, that my body does physically look different. I definitely was still carrying a little bit more fat in my bust, which honestly I'm pretty sad about. I have gotten to the point now where there is no more extra fat in my bust at all. And so I've gone down several cup sizes as a woman, just from the period of time where I had only about 10 pounds numerically remaining for me on my weight loss journey to now. And so that final period of time even after I hit my goal weight, my body continued to really melt fat from different places in my body, to the extent that when I was at a higher weight, particularly when I was about, I'd say, halfway through my weight loss journey, my top was a different size than my bottom. And I am now actually in the same size on top and bottom. So for the longest time, um, I was really a size different from top to bottom. And now I've really evened out, and that weight distribution across my body, wherever the fat is, has really started to finally equalize. That's been really interesting to see. I know for folks that watched the episode where Jason and I were talking about, some tips and strategies for when we were vacationing, when we were at Disneyland, I rhapsodized. I really went off for quite a while about how upset I was about the fat that I lost from my butt and how my butt is kind of non existent now. I'm happy to report that it seems there's been a little bit of redistribution and reshaping. Do I still have basically no butt at all? Absolutely. It's still a no butt work in progress, but I will say that it is looking a little bit more normalized in clothing. It doesn't look like the back of my pants are hanging in an unflattering way because there's nothing to hold them up. So I am pretty cheered by having that small change, at least in the posterior region. Another thing that I found really surprising as I have been on maintenance was the resurgence of some symptoms and some symptomology that I had not experienced for quite a while once I had gotten used to the medication. So there were some things that I experienced very early on in the journey, that had gone away entirely. And so, one example that a lot of people deal with is when you first start taking the medication, that extreme sleepiness and that tiredness that comes within the first couple of days after you take your shot. I remember early on, it was all that I could do to just not be exhausted. I was really wiped out and tired by the medication working in my body. And after a while, I got used to the shot and I wasn't tired anymore. It really went away. And at some point, probably I want to say starting about a month ago, so maybe a month to 6 weeks ago, I started noticing that when I take a shot, and it's, still the same 10 milligram dosage that I have been on, I am noticing that I am getting that tiredness. It's not as bad as when I originally started taking the medication, not by any means, but I am definitely getting that sleepiness again now when I've been taking my shot. So I find that really interesting and curious. And so I honestly don't really have any theory for why that is occurring. At best, I can guess that it has something to do with how my body is starting to stabilize on the medication at this maintenance range. Another set of symptoms that I have started having again that I had not had in a really long time is that windburn pain that I mention in the GLP-1 journal as one of the symptoms that you may experience. This is a really strange feeling, and that's why I call it windburn pain. If you've ever gotten a windburn, it's your skin is chapped. It's almost like a friction burn, but nothing has caused it except for just when you get a wind burn. I really can't explain it in any other way than that. It feels exactly like if you had received a wind burn. And for me, I was getting those kind of where my trunk ends and my legs begin, just in a couple of places. I've noticed that windburn pain on occasion has started to pop back up in places, not for as long as a period as it did when I was initially having it happen. And so right now, for example, I don't have it anymore, but I did have it pop up for a week randomly within the last month. And so I thought that was a really interesting thing to have again. I'm also experiencing that random pain that you're getting where it feels like bruising that happens. And for me, that bruising was happening on my legs around where my knees are. For me, that I think is tying into something with my autoimmune issues. And my autoimmune issues are one of the reasons why, when talking with my clinician about what my maintenance strategy should be, I really decided that it was important for me to stay on a weekly consistent dosage and not try to stretch things out if I did not need to. Because for folks who have autoimmune conditions or inflammatory conditions, there's widespread anecdata from people who are commenting and having the same experience that I had during my journey, which is a lot of that inflammatory pain and a lot of the symptomology that I would have around my autoimmune disorders has really just gone largely into remission. I do not have the rheumatic type pain that I would often have in my knees, or just that general feeling of weakness around my body that I would often have a lot of the time from my connective tissue disorder. And that has been just a godsend, really a lifesaver for me, to not have to experience that pain anymore. And so this is another reason why this medication, for me, it's not just that maintenance of this healthy weight am now at, and a maintenance of healthy metabolic function. It really is, for me, healing me from the inside out, and really relieving a lot of the problems that I've had around some of my chronic illness. And so that has been really great. I've not seen that rheumatic pain or any of my autoimmune complications rearing their ugly heads since I have been on this medication. And in maintenance, I've not seen those flare back up either. It's a scary feeling sometimes, as a person who does have that invisible disability, to know that it could kind of flare up and rear its ugly head on a regular basis, just as this kind of underlying background level of inflammation and pain. And aside from periods of time when I'm pushing myself too hard, periods where I'm not getting the right kind of rest that I need, where I'm under a lot of stress, I might tip into having an episode in those situations. That is something that I know that I have to continue to live with, because that's the nature of having these disorders. But that other kind of just general malaise and pain and inflammation that was always there for me, even on really good days for my health conditions, that's just not there anymore. And it feels great. It really feels great for me. Now that I've been in maintenance for almost 6 months, I've started to do, because it's me, a little bit of experimentation and trying to figure out how far does this go and what has my body really changed on the inside. And so Jason and I did, informally probably for him, but in the back of my mind, kind of on purpose for me, a Halloween experiment. So we, as you all know, went to Disney for Halloween to celebrate and go to Oogie Boogie Bash. And one of the things about Disney's Halloween parties is that you go trick or treating and they give you just so much candy. And so I really was wondering what would happen if I did something like eating a ton of candy. What would that do? How would that feel in my body? What reaction would I have to things? And it was really kind of fascinating. We definitely ate a lot of candy while we were there. We really, as we talked about in that episode, we were not tracking. We were not there trying to be, good little kids on our diets and all of that. We were eating a lot of great stuff, even though we still weren't eating nearly as much as we would have been able to eat in the past. But we really were not trying to be quote good. And that idea of being good versus not is a thing I don't want to subscribe to anymore. And that's part of the change in how I'm approaching and have been approaching all of this throughout this journey for me. And so, yeah, we had the margaritas, we had, the sugar, we ate a lot of Halloween candy. And it was really interesting because the food noise is not something that I have to deal with anymore because I've been on this medication, even within maintenance. It was such a difference for me. I was able to really feel the difference between what it feels like to be in kind of, I call it a sugar cycle. When you're eating too much sugar, your body starts craving more sugar. Generally, we try to stay away from eating too much extra sugar just as a rule. I've kind of done that generally over life because I know that for me it's that it used to be such a narrow window that I had to stay in to keep my weight from ballooning up. And so there is this cycle that you get into when you're eating too much sugar and your body just craves more of it, and it gets really pathological in a way. And so I wanted to know, what does that feel like when I don't have this food noise built in around that? And you can really, at least I could really tell the difference between just a body that is caught up in a sugar cycle and it wants more sugar, and a body that's caught up in a sugar cycle, wants more sugar, and has all of this metabolic dysfunction and has all of that food noise going on in the background. It was markedly different. I could tell that it was my body kind of momentarily for a few days really hooked on sugar and really just wanting to perpetuate that sugar. When I stopped doing the sugar, as we'd say maybe a sugar binge, we were really eating a lot of sugar. There was a lot of Halloween candy. It was really bad. I could feel I was going through the headaches because we'd gone from so much sugar to restricting and going back to not really eating a ton of sugar, and going through that sugar withdrawal that people go through when they cut sugar out of their diet. For anyone who's ever gone through keto or who has done keto, that first 2 weeks of time that you start keto that's how long it takes for your body to fully kick out any type of glucose that your body is still running off of in its own personal stores. And that 2 weeks can really be maddening. I was getting the physical feelings of that happening. I didn't get a full on keto flu or anything like that, but I definitely had headaches going on when we were coming out of that period of eating too much candy. It was definitely better than before I was on the medication. If I had kind of done that cold turkey stop of eating candy, it felt way better than when I was, in the few days when I'd first started doing keto. But yeah, there were definitely symptoms, and my body did not feel as good. It's like my body recognizes we feel better now when you are not loading up on sugar. Sugar is just not your friend. Natural sugars are enough for you. And so my body really kind of rebelled a little bit. I did notice I started getting a little bit of inflammation from having the too much sugar part. Um, I was more tired because, that's what happens. You're crashing. Your sugar levels are really being modified and changing. But what I thought was really interesting was that the whole thing and kind of re-regulating and getting back to a place of normalcy after that process was much quicker. It's like my body did not want to be in that place anymore. And it really wanted to get back to feeling good and processing normal amounts of sugar and not getting caught up in all of that hoopla around just that bad cycle. And so I thought it was really interesting that way. The thing that I was really wondering about was what was going to happen with my weight. Would my weight go up, and by how much? Because we were really enjoying ourselves while we were gone on our trip. And as people were aware, I did not weigh myself that week while we were there, even though I did have, my travel scale with me. When we got back home, I weighed in and I had only gained 2 pounds total. And for me, I feel like some of that was definitely water retention, and a little bit of inflammation, because I was engaging in a lot more physical activity than I usually engage in. I'm a pretty sedentary person, generally speaking. So I thought that was honestly crazy. In the past, when I have gone on vacations and we've kind of eaten whatever we've wanted and we've come back, I have gained anywhere from, 7 to 10 pounds easily coming back from a vacation. So the fact that I only gained about 2 pounds, and within a week, the weigh in after that, the following week, I was back at my regular weight. I could not believe it. It was really shocking to me. And to me, that tells me just how much of a change this medication has made inside my body. And it really is healing things from the inside out. I was honestly floored to see the scale barely bump up and then settle right back down within a week. And more importantly, my clothes all still fit. There was nothing that felt too tight, when I was up a couple of pounds, and everything honestly was fine. And I'm still, I don't know if you can tell just how I'm looking with this. I am floored, because that just for so long, for years, at every point up until this journey, that just has not been the case for me. I mean, at some points, I honestly feel like if I breathed too hard in one direction or another, I would be gaining weight. For me, the biggest freedom of being on this medication in maintenance has been I can eat like a normal person. When I start to get full, I push the plate away. I'm not clean plate club anymore. If I decide to overindulge in something rich and delicious one day, I don't feel this desire to just keep doing that and go back and hit something. It is, I'm craving this thing and I'm gonna have that thing. And then that is it. And it's the end of it. the ability for me to just eat like a normal person who does not have the problems that this metabolic resistance has caused for years for me in my life has been, it's magical. The feeling is nothing short of magical for me. Outside of the experiment, the thing that I have noticed is that I can eat more calories in a day, generally speaking, and my weight does not go up. And so for me, I feel like the fact that I can eat 15 to 1600 calories in a day and not have to be at that near subsistence 1200 calories that I really had to hold myself to very rigidly if I didn't want my weight to move at all. That tells me that my body is on its way to hopefully staying at this range for an extended period of time. And so, just as a reminder, the idea around body set point is the thing that maintenance is designed to really help with, because there's a lot of debate between people on whether or not you do need to stay on this medication forever. I am a person who is of the mind that if someone who was taking this medication did not have those underlying metabolic or insulin resistance issues that this medication really heals in people that are having those problems, I don't think that somebody who didn't have that underlying concern has to be on this medication forever, because they really didn't need the medication in the first place, in a lot of ways. If they wanted to just do a weight loss plan without the aid of this medication, they would have been successful in doing that. It definitely would have taken longer, most likely, because you kind of see that across the board. Anybody, for the most part, if they are within the broad range of folks who do have some positive response on this medication, it goes faster and better than not taking the medication. For people that have a situation like mine, yeah, I think I'm going to need to be on this in perpetuity for forever. But people that are maybe in a situation where their metabolic changes were not quite as difficult as the ones that my body had, people that are more in the middle, where maybe their metabolic resistance was more moderate or wasn't too bad, or for them, maybe they are a younger person than I am, and this was able to be arrested before it got worse and made things much worse for them in their bodies over time. I feel like there are people who, if they stay in maintenance for long enough and they maintain within that 5 to 10 pound range for where they want to sit in their body's weight, that there is possibly the ability for people to come off of this medication. But those are kind of all of the caveats that I put underneath that. And the theory that I have around that, it really ties in to the idea of set point theory. Our whole body is made to keep us in equilibrium. And this idea of wanting to return to this place of homeostasis, we are really trying to not swing too far in one direction or the other. And if we spend periods of time at length in or around a certain body weight range, those places get coded into our bodies as places where our weight wants to return and get back to. And that's why, while it's really easy for some people to lose weight, so many people will regain weight afterward. And it's not a willpower thing. It is literally the way that our bodies are programmed to work. And so ultimately, my theory is that if people are able to stay in the weight range that they are shooting for an extended period of time, I think that minimum period is at least 1 year. But for good measure, I think at minimum, I'm trying to very actively keep my body in the range that I am in for a full 2 years. Um, I think if I can get to 2 years in maintenance at the weight range that I am in, that my body will have had sufficient time to create a new set point. And this will be a place that my body wants to return to. There's a lot of science that goes into why that is, and that will be an episode that I get into to have a little bit more depth around the science of that. But that is what my goal is right now for what I am doing in maintenance. I really want to stay in this range for first a year. So I'll celebrate a year in maintenance, and then I would like to maintain in this range for a second year, but I will celebrate again if I can get to 18 months at this range. And so those are my near long-term goals for what I'm doing with maintenance. I'm excited to see what happens with this. I have had a really pretty good time as maintenance has gone. I'm feeling confident around being able to keep this up, and I'm excited to see what happens next. So that's the tea on how things are going for me and the surprises that I have had in my almost first 6 months in maintenance. If you think weight loss medications could be right for you, absolutely talk to a medical professional, preferably an endocrinologist or an obesity medicine specialist, because those are the folks who know these meds the best. As always, I am not sponsored by or a representative of any pharmaceutical companies. I'm just one woman who is sharing her journey and her opinions on these matters. And if this channel has been helpful to you and you find this content worthwhile, please absolutely hit that trifecta. Like, subscribe, notifications, and I'll see you on the other side.